watching. Now I am so excited for this week's video, as this is a collaboration with charity from the YouTube channel The Lovely Baker. Now we'll both be making a pumpkin themed Halloween cake, so make sure after you've watched this video you head over to The Lovely Baker's channel, and I will put all the links in the description below so you can see what cake charity has been making. Now for this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a carved pumpkin cake. Okay, let's get started. So for the cake, I've just baked 2 half sphere cakes. Now for these ones, I just baked them in a glass oven-proof dish, which has given us this nice curve on the bottom. So I've got 2 halves and each one measures 7 inches in diameter at its widest point. The first thing that I'm gonna do is just split each of these cakes into 2. So it's gonna give us 4 layers for our cake. So I've got my first piece of cake and I've got some white chocolate ganache which I've made, which I'm going to use as a filling for my cake. So I'm just going to pop some of that on there and then bring in my next layer of cake. Now because this is quite a large cake, so the top half is going to be quite heavy, I'm going to put some dowels in at this point, just because the bottom of our cake is slightly thinner than those outside edges. So I've just trimmed down a cake board, so it's 5 inches in width. The reason that I haven't done it the exact size of the top of our cake is just because I want to carve into my cake, so this is going to allow me room to do that without hitting the board. So I've just got the PME Easy Cut dowels. Now just using an edible pen, I'm just going to mark on the top of my cake, cut out 3 pieces of dowel and just put those in a triangle shape. I'm then going to cover that layer with some of my ganache and just stick down my cake board, putting on the next layer of cake. We want to get the shape of our pumpkin, so at the moment slightly just a little bit too high, so I'm just going to take a bit of that cake just off of the top. Now I have had my cake in the fridge just so it's nice and firm, as I knew I would be cutting it. I'm going to start by just putting a dent in the top, so I'm just cutting some of that cake out, and this is just going to be where our pumpkin stalk goes. I'm then going to work on the outside with my serrated knife and just make sure all the bits of cake are matching up. So we're getting this nice round pumpkin shape. So pumpkins aren't usually completely smooth, you have ridges going all the way down. So I'm going to use my serrated knife and just cut into my cake. On the top, just cutting in and then cutting in at an angle just to take some of that cake away. We can then use these grooves as a guide when we put it with a layer of chocolate ganache all over the outside. Now once I have got a coating on, I'm just going to go in with my flexi smoother, just holding this at an angle just to smooth that off. Just making sure I go back into those grooves, marking out the shape of the pumpkin. So I'm just using the edge of my flexi smoother and just working my way around the cake. Okay, so once that initial crumb coat is done, I'm just going to pop this in the fridge just for that to harden, so we can go back in with some more ganache and just smooth that out completely. Okay, so whilst my cake is in the fridge, I'm just going to work on the board that the cake will eventually sit on. So this one just measures 11 inches across and is a 1 centimeter drum board. Now I want to make it look like my pumpkin is sitting outside, so maybe on some decking. So I'm going to make this look like wood. Just to start with, I've got some fondant which I've coloured in a kind of yellowy ivory colour. Take some brown, so I've just got this colour splash brown, and marble in some of that colour. I'm then going to start kneading those lines in, just twisting fondant as I go. Now you might want to add some more in as we go. All we're trying to do is create a wood grain effect. So you want to stop before all those colours have combined. So as you can see, we've still got some of that ivory, we've got some medium browns and some darker browns in there, and start to roll this out. Now the great thing about marbling is you can look at both sides and just see which one you prefer. I'm going to stick with this one. So it looks like we've got these wood grains running through. Pop some water onto my board just so my fondant fondant will stick. So now it's starting to look like wood grain. I just want to make it look like you've got different panels in there. So I'm going to go in the direction of those grains. Take a ruler and just holding it on its edge, just push it into my cake board, move across. So I'm just leaving a gap of around 2 inches. Now the grooves are quite thin, so I'm just going to go in with my Dresden tool, running that up the center. You then just want to put some lines in going the opposite way, just so they look like planks of wood. Now I'm just going in with my Dresden tool, just putting in some extra grooves, just trying to follow the lines in the pattern that we've created. So if we've got some that are curved, I'm just going to create as if like a knot in the wood. I then want to go in and just highlight some of these details and just add some shadow. So I've just got some edible tints. I've got some buttermilk, some cream, some brown and some chocolate. So just using a fluffy brush, I'm going to go in first of all just down where we used the ruler to add the joins. Now I'm just going in with some of that colour just around some of those knots that we put in to make them stand out. And I'm just taking a bit of black edible dust mixed with some brown, just running that through so we get a nice dark shadow just on that inside. So completely happy. There we have our wood grain board. Now I'm just going to finish this off with an ivory ribbon just around the edge. Once this has come out of the fridge, I'm just going to go in with another coating of my chocolate ganache just to smooth out all of those edges and fill up any gaps. So again, I'm just using my offset spatula and going back in with my flexi smoother. Once that's nice and smooth and we're starting to get the shape of a pumpkin, I'm just going to put it back in the fridge for around 10 minutes just for that ganache to harden. Now my pumpkin has come out of the fridge. It's now time to start making it look like it's carved. I've just got a template here, so we're just going to have a boo across the front of the cake. Now everything in black will be part of the orange pumpkin, and all the white area I want to make it look like it's been carved, so this is going to be black. So I need to work out the best positioning. Now I'm going to cover the cake with orange fondant and cut into this, so I need to add some black underneath so that when we remove the parts you get this nice silhouette behind. Now to make this stick, I've just got some water and some icing sugar in a glass just to make a sticky paste, and I'm going to paste that over the area which I want to cover in my black. Now I need to make sure that this is just slightly larger than my template. I'm going to pop this onto my cake, just making sure it's nice and smooth, and also going in with my flexi smoother, making sure that they're nice and flat against the cake. Now the reason to do this is just because I don't want those edges to show up underneath the orange fondant. Now once that is in place, we are ready to cover the entire pumpkin in orange. I'm going to roll this out until it's large enough to cover my cake. So the fondant for the cake will be around 5mm, but I am going to make the fondant for the front around 7mm. So as you can see, the depth of it at the back to the depth at the front. Now I have just added some more of the water and icing sugar all over my cake, just so that my fondant will stick, and drape that over the top, just making sure that the thicker section is covering the black. I can then go in and just smooth that all the way down, making sure that I'm going into those grooves that we created. So just pulling it back and smoothing it down with upward motions. Once that's all been smoothed down, I'm just going to cut off the majority of that excess and go in with my knife, really making sure we get a nice edge at the bottom, pushing it underneath. And if you have got any air bubbles, you just want to use a pin and get those out. So I'm just running my fingers just up those areas where we created the dents. Just make sure that you always know which part has the black underneath. I'm then going to use my Dresden tool just to add in some more details. So starting from the top, I'm working down, and also the bottom working up. Put some more small dents just to give some texture. I've got my template, and all I've done is just trace this onto some parchment paper, just because parchment paper is a lot thinner, so we'll bend around the cake a little more. So I'm going to pop that into place. And I'm just going to use a couple of pins. I'm going to use my Dresden tool to create an outline. So when you take this off, you should have a rough outline. I'm going to go in with my craft knife. Now I only want to go in around 7mm, which is the depth that I made the orange icing at the front. And just carefully lift the orange out, reveal the black underneath. I'm then going to continue round. Now I'm going to go in and neaten out some of those edges. I'm going to go in with my Dresden tool and just finish adding the lines onto the pumpkin's texture, just as we did around the rest of the pumpkin. Now what I'm going to do is bring those up and also just continue those on the lettering where we've got this lip, which would be the inside of our pumpkin. I'm also just going to pop lines onto there. It looks like texture inside. I've then got some white food gel, which I've just mixed with a tiny bit of ivory. And I'm just going to paint this on the inside. So we just want this to look like the fleshy inside part of a pumpkin. Okay, so now the inside of that pumpkin has been added. It's now time to add more colour just to make it look a lot more realistic. I've got some edible tints in a sunrise orange, a terracotta, a tangerine, an egg yellow and a brown. Now just using a combination of these, go in with my fluffy brush. Now I'm going to have the stalk coming out the top, but I want it to be a lot darker in this top section. Then just coming down the grooves, slightly darker again, but keeping the centre a lot lighter. Working my way all around the pumpkin, making sure that I come from the top and from the bottom. Now, just like we have gone in with the darker shades, I'm just going in with some of those lighter shades also, just to bring in some highlights, blending that all together. So as you can see, by adding those different shades of orange, it's really started to make the pumpkin come to life. So for the stalk that's going to go in the top, I've got 3 different colours of fondant. A dark brown, a green, which has got some dark green running through it, so I just haven't mixed it 100%, and some of the leftover fondant from my wood board. Mixing these together and just twisting those around just so we get a combination of all of the colours. Break a chunk of that off, roll this into a ball. Now I'm just tapering down one side slightly just to give me a slight cone shape, and I'm going to trim the top off of that and just make it so that it's at an angle. Now I don't want this just to sit completely flat against the pumpkin, so I'm just going to use my fingers just to work areas of that out. Now to add some texture, I'm going to take some tin foil and just scrunch that up. I'm then going to go in with my Dresden tool and just run some lines. I can then bring my pumpkin back in and just place this on the top. Just using my Dresden tool, I'm just going into the edge, just flattening that down on the surface of my pumpkin, just so it looks like it's grown out of the top of the pumpkin. So it's now with some of that petal dust that I've got left over, I'm just going to go in and just bring some of the brown up. So now we've got the pumpkin all ready. I'm just going to bring it back in my board and transfer this over so we can finish off the cake. Pop just a small amount of ganache in the center and carefully lift my cake across. Now, just to finish off the cake, I just want to add a few autumn leaves just around the bottom. So I've got an oak veiner. Now, this one doesn't have a cutter, so I've just made a template by placing a piece of parchment paper over the top. Now, I'm just using some gum paste or some floral paste. I've coloured one in a red, a green, and a light brown. Now, I will be putting some petal dust on these, just as we did with the pumpkin. And just using my template, cut around the edge, pop these just on top of that veiner. I'm then gonna leave this to dry, just slightly scrunched up. Now I'm gonna create a few with the brown and the green also and just leave them to dry. Now, once they're dry, I'm just going to go in with some petal dust, and I've just got different shades. So I've got oranges, reds, yellows, browns and greens, and just build these up. So once they've all been coloured, we're left with these really pretty autumnal leaves. So here we have the pumpkin so far, so it just needs a few finishing touches. So first of all, I'm going to take my fluffy brush just with some of that black edible tint, and I'm going to dust off any excess. Now I'm just pushing the fluffy brush into the gap between the board and the bottom of the pumpkin, just creating a shadow, working my way all the way around. I'm then going to bring some of those leaves that we've created in and just place those around the board. Pop some edible glue to glue them into place. So here we have the finished carved pumpkin cake. Now I've just got the word boo across the front, but you can use any design you like. Alternatively, you could just use this as an autumn themed pumpkin cake without the carving at all. Whatever you choose to make, I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will enjoy making your own version of this cake. Now, don't forget to head over to the Lovely Baker's channel to see what amazing cake Charity has been making. So until next time, bye!